Brother, sister, how do I genuinely know if this is the person God actually has for me? Is one of the most common questions asked in genuine, honest prayer, and also one of the most genuinely difficult to actually answer with certainty. Part of the genuine difficulty here is that Scripture doesn't hand you a simple formula, a specific verse reference guaranteeing a particular person by name, or a supernatural, unmistakable sign that removes all genuine uncertainty from the decision entirely. What Scripture does genuinely offer instead is something quite different. Genuine wisdom for actually discerning this specific question well over time, rather than a convenient shortcut that skips the whole discernment process entirely. Today we're walking through 5 things worth genuinely paying attention to as you actually work through this question honestly. Not as a guaranteed formula that removes all uncertainty, but as honest, practical markers genuinely worth taking seriously as you pray and reflect. This isn't a checklist of qualities to look for in a person. We've covered that ground elsewhere in genuine depth already. This is about the actual process of discerning well, over real time, rather than searching for a single decisive moment of certainty. Stay with me. If you're currently asking this exact question about someone specific, this is worth hearing all the way through. Think honestly about where you actually are right now in this specific question. Are you asking this question with real, genuine, honest openness to whatever the honest answer turns out to be? Or have you already quietly decided the answer you want, and you're now simply looking for enough confirmation to feel comfortable proceeding? That distinction matters enormously, because genuine discernment requires a real willingness to hear an answer you didn't necessarily want, not simply a search for permission to do what you'd already decided. The first thing worth paying attention to is a peace that genuinely survives real scrutiny, not just excitement that feels convincing in the moment. Excitement and genuine peace can feel remarkably similar early on, especially when strong attraction is involved. But excitement tends to fade or shift under honest questioning, while genuine peace tends to hold steady even when you actually examine the relationship carefully, ask hard questions, and consider real, practical concerns. If your sense of confidence about this person only survives as long as you avoid thinking too carefully about it, that's worth taking seriously. Genuine peace doesn't require you to stop asking honest questions in order to keep feeling it. Consider actually testing this directly. Spend real, unhurried time in prayer, specifically inviting honest scrutiny, asking God to reveal anything you might genuinely be missing or avoiding, rather than simply praying for confirmation of what you're already hoping to hear. If genuine peace remains steady even through this kind of honest, vulnerable prayer, that's meaningful. If the peace only exists as long as you keep the questioning relatively shallow, that gap itself is worth taking seriously. The second thing worth paying attention to is whether wise counsel from people who genuinely know you actually agrees with what you're sensing, rather than relying entirely on your own feelings in isolation. This doesn't mean outsourcing the entire decision to other people, but it does mean genuinely valuing the perspective of trusted parents, mentors, pastors, or close friends who know you well and have no particular stake in the outcome besides your genuine good. If the people who love you most and know you best consistently express real concern, that's meaningful information worth actually engaging rather than simply dismissing because it's inconvenient to your own current feelings. Scripture consistently emphasizes the genuine value of counsel precisely because our own perspective, especially amid strong emotion, is often less reliable than we'd like to believe. This doesn't mean any single critical voice should automatically override your own genuine discernment. People offering counsel are themselves imperfect and occasionally genuinely mistaken, but a consistent pattern across multiple trusted voices, especially voices with a real track record of caring about your genuine well-being rather than simply telling you what you want to hear, deserves serious, prayerful consideration rather than quick dismissal simply because it's not the answer you were hoping for. The third thing worth paying attention to is whether this specific person draws you toward your actual calling and purpose, or quietly pulls you away from it. Consider the direction of your life since this relationship began. Are you actually growing in the specific ways God seems to have genuinely gifted and called you toward? Your ministry involvement, your career sense of purpose, your character, your service to others? Or has this relationship quietly become the center around which everything else has started reorganizing itself? Your other genuine callings and priorities gradually shrinking to make room? A relationship that's actually part of God's plan for you tends to complement your genuine calling rather than compete with it or quietly replace it altogether. This doesn't mean a genuinely right relationship never requires adjustment or compromise. Every real relationship does, to some degree. But there's a meaningful difference between healthy adjustment and a relationship that's actually eclipsing purposes God had already been clearly forming in you well before this person arrived. Consider asking specifically, has your service to your church community grown or genuinely diminished since this relationship began? Has time devoted to the specific gifts and callings God's clearly placed in your life expanded or quietly contracted? A partner genuinely aligned with God's purpose for you tends to actively encourage and celebrate these things, even sacrificing their own convenience at times to support them, rather than subtly, even unintentionally, competing with them for your limited time and attention. The fourth thing worth paying attention to is genuine consistency over real time, not simply a strong, compelling first impression. A first impression, however powerful, is genuinely limited information. It reveals how someone presents in a specific, often carefully curated moment, not necessarily who they actually are across the ordinary, unglamorous stretch of real life. Time reveals character in ways a single strong impression simply can't. Watch specifically how someone behaves not just when things are going well, but during actual stress, actual disappointment, actual ordinary life stretched out over months rather than compressed into a handful of especially memorable moments. There's no universally fixed length of time genuinely required before discernment becomes reliable, but a pattern observed across multiple different seasons and circumstances, some genuinely difficult, some genuinely ordinary, provides considerably more reliable information than a relationship still confined entirely to its earliest, most carefully presented weeks. If you find yourself resisting the idea of simply waiting and observing longer, that resistance itself is worth honestly examining. The fifth thing worth paying attention to is whether you can genuinely picture building an entire life with this person, not simply enjoying a particularly good season together. Seasons feel different from lifetimes. A specific season, an exciting new relationship, a particular shared adventure, a temporarily convenient life stage, can feel wonderful without actually reflecting what an entire shared life together would genuinely look like. Ask yourself honestly, can you picture this person as a genuine partner through real hardship, through raising children, if that's part of your future, through the ordinary, unglamorous decades most marriages actually consist of? That kind of extended, honest imagination reveals far more than simply asking whether you're currently happy in this specific season. Consider actually praying through specific, concrete future scenarios together. If the relationship has genuinely progressed to a point where this feels appropriate, not simply the exciting parts of a shared future, but the genuinely difficult ones as well. How would this person likely respond to genuine financial hardship, a serious health crisis, a significant disagreement about raising children, or a long season of unanswered prayer? Imagining these scenarios honestly together, even hypothetically, often reveals considerably more about long-term compatibility than any amount of simply enjoying each other's company in easier, more comfortable circumstances. So what does it actually look like to genuinely discern this question well, rather than searching for a single decisive sign? It looks like paying attention to whether peace actually survives honest scrutiny. It looks like genuinely valuing wise counsel rather than relying entirely on your own feelings. It looks like noticing whether this relationship draws you toward your calling or quietly away from it. It looks like watching for consistency over real time, not just a compelling first impression. And it looks like honestly imagining an entire shared life, not simply a good season. None of these 5 markers function as an infallible formula guaranteeing a specific outcome. Discernment, even done genuinely well, still involves real faith and real trust. Since certainty this significant rarely arrives in some final, dramatic, unmistakable form. But these 5 markers, taken together and given genuine time, tend to produce far clearer discernment than simply waiting for a feeling of absolute certainty that may never actually arrive in the way you're hoping for. If you're currently genuinely uncertain about someone specific, consider giving this process actual time rather than rushing toward a premature conclusion in either direction. Genuine discernment rarely happens quickly, and there's no actual shame in taking the time this significant a decision genuinely deserves. Here's a simple, practical way to actually apply these 5 markers, if you're currently walking through this exact question yourself. Set aside genuine, unhurried time. Not a single rushed evening, but several separate occasions over the coming weeks. To actually pray through each marker individually and honestly. For peace, has your confidence held steady through genuine scrutiny or only through avoidance? For counsel, what have the trusted people in your life actually said, and how have you genuinely responded to it? For calling, has this relationship expanded or quietly contracted your sense of purpose and service? For consistency, what have you actually observed across different circumstances and seasons, not just the easiest ones? For the whole life question, can you honestly imagine this person present through genuine hardship, not just genuine happiness? None of this is meant to produce anxious, endless deliberation, where every relationship gets held indefinitely under permanent scrutiny, never actually allowed to move forward toward genuine commitment. Discernment done well eventually reaches an actual conclusion, even if that conclusion still requires genuine faith rather than absolute certainty. The goal is thoughtful, prayerful clarity, not permanent, paralyzed hesitation that never actually resolves into a decision either way. If, after genuinely walking through these 5 markers honestly, you find real clarity, whether that clarity points toward moving forward or toward stepping back, trust that clarity, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it disappoints people around you, even if it means genuinely grieving something you'd hoped would work out differently. Genuine discernment sometimes leads to hard conclusions, and the willingness to actually follow through on what discernment reveals matters just as much as the discernment process itself. If you're currently in a season of genuine uncertainty, without clear clarity yet in either direction, that's not necessarily a sign something has gone wrong with your discernment process. Some seasons of genuine uncertainty simply require more time, more prayer, more honest observation before clarity actually emerges. Resist the pressure, whether from your own impatience or from other people's expectations, to force a premature conclusion before you've actually given this process the genuine time it deserves. Scripture doesn't promise a formula that removes the need for actual faith from this specific decision, any more than it does from any other significant decision in your life. What it does promise is genuine wisdom, genuine guidance, and genuine presence throughout the process, even when the specific outcome remains unclear for longer than you'd honestly prefer. If this stirred something in you, brother, sister, don't scroll past it. Subscribe to Biblical Warning now, and let's keep examining these hidden places together, one warning at a time.